Hey everyone, welcome back to Reboot, GameSpot's opinion editorial show. I'm Mike Mahardy.
And I'm Jake Dekker.
And last week we talked about Divinity Original Sin 2, a kind of old schoolish computer RPG that everybody's been talking about lately, an isometric kind of sequel to, obviously, Divinity Original Sin 1 from Larian Studios in Belgium. And this game is awesome. You and I both like it a lot.
Yeah, I haven't played nearly as much as you. I've only probably played 10 hours across 3 characters now because I've been re-rolling characters because I don't like how I did that. Start over. I'm still trying to figure things out.
What classes have you been using?
I've done...
like races and class.
I've done Barbarian as the skeleton. I think Barbarian's a class. The one with the axe at the beginning.
I think so. There's a lot. There's like 16 or so.
I've been the archer, an elf archer, and then I've been a human, just a warrior.
The ranger, were you talking about?
Ranger, yeah.
Those ones. I was almost going to do. I did the polymorph. You can turn your arm into a tentacle, hit people, also turn into a bull and charge people.
That's pretty cool.
But then I've been upgrading the skills I need to actually get new skills. Upgrading the traits I need to get new skills, and that's been fun because my whole bar is filled up. I'm almost onto my second ability bar. But for people who have played this game so far, it's a very, very dense, very deep RPG, a la Baldur's Gate 2, almost like Pillars of Eternity, kind of. I would say Torment, Tides of Numenera, which was last year. That was a little more text based, but in general, this role playing game that actually lets you roleplay, which has kind of been, we toss around the term role-playing game so much now because Call of Duties have RPG progression. Yeah. So, The Witcher 3, people in the comments were saying it's not really an RPG, it's an action RPG. I'm like, but I'd still consider The Witcher an RPG, not in the sense that Divinity is.
Yeah, I think with video games, people think of RPGs as a game where you... at least commonly people think of RPGs as a game where you level up, improve your character, grow different skills... But we're talking about something differently with this video. We're talking about a game that lets you actually step in the shoes of a character that you created, that you can you can fill in a lot of those areas that are left blank. It's not like you're playing as Geralt, who is a defined character who has these beliefs, which you can maneuver within those definitions. But this actually lets you pick your own character and choose your own path based on that. Kind of like Skyrim.
Or reminiscent of pen and paper RPGs from back in the Dungeons and Dragons.
That's exactly what they were based on.
But as always in our off-week episode, we do have Q&A we want to get to. We had some comments. People seem to like this episode. There's been a lot being said about Divinity Original Sin 2, so we were trying to figure out what to talk about, and I figured it was a really cool approach to player choice in a genre that I have felt has been a little bit lacking lately, but then that's not even true because you look around, like I said, Torment, Pillars of Eternity, and then Pillars of Eternity 2 is on the horizon. It's just they've been harder to find, and I love that Divinity Original Sin 2 is getting so much recognition because I think it deserves it. But yeah, you want to get to the questions? Jake, you want to do... Actually, I'll do the first one.
Why don't you... Yeah, you do the first one, please.
All right, so this is more of kind of a callback, I guess. So I was talking in my video about how I have an undead character, the skeleton, who essentially, because I was role-playing, I just accepted that he was going to keep screwing up and missing shots and saying the wrong thing to people. So I was like, I'll just embrace the whole idiot role. So Limey Lassen on YouTube said, so you're saying that you accidentally roleplayed as Papyrus the Skellington, which is kind of made me laugh because if you played Undertale, then you know who that is. It's essentially the skeleton, one of the skeleton brothers that you encounter. Mm-hmm. He's supposed to be evil, but he keeps trying to be arch, but he's just really dumb and keeps helping you solve puzzles that he lays out for you and just becomes comic relief along the way. So I figured I'd put that in here because I just...
That is a lot like your character.
I know. I recently played Undertale, and that was a great comment. Limey, thank you for the callback to another game. Jake, you want to do this next one?
All right. Set It Free 783 says, great video, truly informative and easy to understand. I do like the references to Baldur's Gate, Witcher 3, and MEA, Mass Effect Andromeda. My only worry will be, do you think Divinity 2 is maybe a bit too slow for this newer generation of PC players? Yes and no. I think as someone who primarily only played on console and just recently got a PC, Divinity 2 is definitely overwhelming and kind of slow, and I can see how that would be a turnoff for a lot of people in my situation. However, I think part of it was because we gave it a 10. I was like, all right, I need to really play more of this game. And the more I played, the more I loved it. So yes, I think that could be an issue because it is much slower. There's a lot more to it. However, I think people who do stick with it will get a lot out of it.
Yeah. I would say I grew up with RPGs and kind of my brother always had a PC I was playing on, but in my early 20s and kind of late teens I was primarily on consoles. So I missed out on things I would have loved to play that I had to go back to. Baldur's Gate 2 was incidentally the last like true RPG I think I played before I got back into them in like 5 or 10 years after that. But I do think this will be slow if you're not used to these kind of games. Again, we gave it a 10, which means it's essential, which means everybody should try it. But I think the more you play, the more you realize that it's in the details and the moment-to-moment kind of stuff that you actually will find the joy in. Like, I honestly could not tell you that much about what's going on in the overarching story. I know there's you're essentially trying to ascend to godhood. You're selected to go to godhood, and like only one of you can. So it starts to create cool betrayals between you and your partners, and that's not really a spoiler. That's like people talk about that in reviews. I won't go in further in depth, but it's the character interactions. It's these random people I meet. It's holy shit, I didn't know I could do this with this attack, or I didn't know this person would react this way because I'm an undead skeleton. Like, I love pulling off my hood and then like people will just run away and sprinting in the other direction when they realize I'm an undead.
I also think one thing too is that this game is fully voiced, which sounds little, but I think that goes a long way.
It's so impressive for how much dialogue there is.
Yeah, and all the voice acting, at least that I've come across, is really good.
Yeah.
Which definitely goes a long way, because I don't mind reading in games. I'm fine with that. But after a while, especially with that much dialogue, I feel like it would start to get old. But with that, like, you just click past, you hear what they say, click past, and it's very entertaining.
Yeah, and I do think it's not, like, people who are used to Mass Effect or Witcher 3 and consider that they're the most RPG-ish game that they'll play will definitely find this slow, I think. But, if you're one of those people watching this and wondering if you should get into it, people have been tweeting at us since the last episode saying, oh, I picked this game up on your recommendation. It took a little bit to get into, but now I'm just hooked. And that's kind of been a few people in the office who weren't traditionally into CRPGs as well. They're saying, holy shit, I'm not used to this isometric kind of, party-based, just emergent gameplay kind of thing with an actual role-playing game, and they're loving it. And I highly encourage everybody to try it. If it's slow, just give it a chance. It'll start picking up, I think. It's not going to be, like, super action-packed, but you will get into more fun combat and get more abilities and start to really see how all these threads are kind of unraveling certain parts of the story, and it's fantastic. Cool. So thank you for your comment on YouTube. All right, last one. Question. Ultima Underworld was one of the most important RPGs, and till this day, one of the best in the way it offered the player freedom to create their own narrative like an RPG should. I'm curious why you did not mention Ultima at the beginning of this video. I see many people forget it. That's a great call-out.
Mike didn't forget about it. Maybe in this video he did, but we did a whole thing about it.
Yeah. So maybe that's a result of... we did a documentary series on Arcane Studios and how... immersive sims, which is like this annoyingly... it's just this annoying kind of inside baseball term. I'm sure a lot of people know it, but for RPGs that kind of put you in this cohesive world and then let you kind of toy around with the mechanics in ways that you're kind of like doing trial and error and just like experimenting with it. System Shock 2, Ultima Underworld was like the first one. Prey more recently, Dishonored 2, Death of the Outsider, Arcane, all the stuff they're doing. Even Shadow of Mordor kind of has that with the Nemesis system. It's focused on immersion gameplay and seeing how these systems interact. I would honestly call that game more of an immersive sim because for the same reason, I don't think you're getting into your character as much in Ultima Underworld. You're improving your character, but it's like Jake said, you're not really... At least when I played Ultima Underworld a long time ago, and from what I remember of it, I was not really role-playing. I was more exploring the world and then using its systems to try to figure out what to do rather than saying, what would my character do? Which is what I do in Divinity and Torment and Pillars of Eternity. But it is definitely an important game in RPGs because that was one of the first games to put you in a 3D cohesive world that wasn't just isometric, right? I was from Looking Glass Studios back with Paul Newrath, Doug Church, Warren Spector came on, and they all wanted to make those kind of games because they grew up loving them. They wanted to make those kind of games because they realized what 3D could do, and Warren Spector's like, holy shit, this is huge. Why are more people not getting on this? And then, of course, they would go on to make System Shock, and Ken Levine would come on for System Shock 2. Started this whole legacy of things that led to, like, Gone Home. Seamus Blackley left Looking Glass to go start the original Xbox. He pitched it to Bill Gates in the room and said, you need to have a video game console. And it's a hugely important game. I'm glad you mentioned it, Ray 4 on YouTube. And like I said, we also, if you want to look more into that, we have a 3-part documentary series called...
I'll link it at the end of this video.
Okay, cool. On Arcane Studios and how their legacy comes from Looking Glass and those. I don't know, Jake. Is there any other RPGs that I didn't mention? I know, like, obviously you're a huge Mass Effect fan. You did Saddest Party in the Citadel, which is pretty funny. People were commenting on how ugly Baldwin Shepard, your character, was in this. That was not my Shepard in last episode of Reboot. That was Jake's. Blame him.
That's not my Shepard either. We did this show on GameSpot. Also, you can check out. Sorry to plug all this, which is basically just a playthrough of Mass Effect 2 and 3 of just trying to basically break the game.
Kill everybody except Shepard. As many people as possible, right? It's funny. You should watch it.
But anyway, in terms of like games, games that I think the biggest game for me that kind of scratched that role-playing itch that I'd never really had was when I first played Oblivion.
Yeah.
I never played Baldur's Gate. I didn't play Baldur's Gate 2. I haven't played... I mean, I've played Diablo, but I don't know if that...
Yeah, I mean, that's more of an action RPG, but
exactly.
It stemmed from games like this, yeah.
But I think this was... Divinity 2 was the first real CRPG that I've ever played. But I think the first time I got that feeling was with Oblivion, just because that did exactly what you were saying. You start the game as someone in prison. Basically, the game sets you up like just start over. It like begin a new life, whatever. You pick your character, make him however you want, and then him or her however you want, and then just kind of go out in the world. And I think I was like maybe 15 or 16 when that game came out, and I just like did not do the story. Decided I want to be a thief. Did the Thief Guild, like. Met Gray Fox or whatever his name was, and then like, all right, I'm sick of this. I'm doing something else. It was cool. I mean, I love that feeling in video games, which I don't think you necessarily get. Not even in something like Mass Effect. Mass Effect is still like a very direct path to the end that you can kind of choose different points. Same with Witcher, one of my favorite games of all time, which I love that game.
Wild Hunt, right?
Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which I love that game. But still, you are playing as Geralt.
Yeah, and I do think, like you're talking about Oblivion, I think going on to Skyrim, I think that game is obviously like it's more mainstream than a lot of these we're talking about. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not being an elitist RPG. I'm saying I think it's factual that game sold a ton. It's coming to Switch. It's been re-released on PS4, Xbox One, PC. I think that game's impressive because of how it brought this more traditional role-playing game to such a wide audience, and I don't think it gets enough credit for that. But yeah, I mean, I'll be playing Skyrim, and I still play it from time to time. I'm gonna play it a lot on my Switch. You make this character. I'll make like a wood elf, and I'll focus on alchemy, archery, one-handed stealth, and conjuring because that's the character I create in my head. I could use two-handed weapons to start power ranking, like I get to level 40, and I really like two-handed. It's one of the ones I haven't upgraded. I could start using that, but it wouldn't make sense for the character, so it doesn't feel as fun because I'm not role playing, and that's why. Yeah. Divinity is so great, even with like the support characters who I didn't even create. I'm like, okay, well, the Red Prince should probably not be a part of this private conversation because he's going to screw it up somehow because he's so diplomatic and so proud and like vain. And Sabine, she might just straight up kill this person because I have no idea how many people she has beef with. Turns out there's a lot, and she keeps screwing me over, but I don't want to reload the save, and I think that's the mark of a great RPG. Obviously, you're always F5ing, so to be safe in any RPG, you should be saving a lot. Skyrim is also a cheap example. But the fact that I'm not reloading saves as often as I might in another RPG, I'm just rolling with the punches, is why I love Divinity Original Sin 2. And it's a great game, and I'm going to keep playing it in between everything else and hopefully finish it up. We are kind of stepping into the next episode. I don't want to tease it too much. But I will tell you the games that we're going to talk about, and maybe you can kind of infer what the topic will be. Cuphead is the main one, if you've been paying attention to these like debates swirling around that game. Shadow of War, which reviews just went up Thursday, if you're watching this on Sunday. And The Evil Within 2, which by the time we publish episode 16, The Evil Within 2 will have been out for 2 days. There's a common thread between all three games that we want to talk about, at least I'm assuming with The Evil Within 2, which I haven't played yet. But the other two I have. You've been playing Cuphead. We're gonna talk about those games and then tie them all together in a way that hopefully provides a good, maybe not argument on my part, but it sparks some debate and questions in the comments, which is what we're always looking for. As always, in these Q&A episodes, we love your input, as these questions can attest to. We love comments, like criticisms, just like suggestions for other games is always like one of the best things you can give us. Someone had suggested I try out Pillars of Eternity 2 when it comes out, so I'm looking forward to playing that. And we will be back next week as always with episode 16, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.